Have you ever stopped to think about the digital worlds that were born and then just died behind the Iron Curtain? You know, entire worlds created on these strange, unfamiliar machines, all under the watchful eye of the state, that have now pretty much vanished. Well, today, we're going hunting for ghosts. Ghosts in the machine. So let's start with a name that I guarantee you know, Tetris. Okay, picture this. It's 1984, and deep inside a Soviet computer lab, a programmer named Alexei Pajitnov creates this simple, elegant, and just impossibly addictive puzzle game. It was a little piece of digital magic that somehow escaped the USSR, and, well, it basically conquered the entire planet.
But here's the crazy part. The unbelievable, world-changing success of Tetris, it's the very reason we can't play the other games its creators were working on. Its success casts a shadow so huge, it literally erased an entire collection of other creations made by the exact same team. And that's really the big question we're diving into. What were these other games? Why did they just disappear into thin air? And what can their stories tell us about what it's like to be creative in a world that's basically designed to shut you down? We're about to become digital archaeologists, so let's find out.
Okay, so to understand why these games vanish, you've got to understand the world they were born into. This wasn't just a different market, it was a completely different reality. It was a system that actively fought against making, sharing, and even saving games, a system we can call the Great Soviet Filter.
You know, in the West, you had these bedroom coders dreaming of starting the next big company. But in the Soviet Union, they had authors games, or Avtorskie Igry. And these were pure passion projects, made by engineers, hobbyists, students, all in their spare time. There was no games industry, no publishers, just this fragile underground network of people passing copied cassette tapes from one person to the next.
And this chart just lays out the two parallel universes perfectly. In the West, it was all about the market, making money, and was protected by intellectual property rights. But in the Soviet Union, everything was controlled by the state. There was literally no such thing as private IP. In fact, Alexei Pajitnov didn't see a single cent in royalties for Tetris for years, not until long after he'd moved to the US. And get this, arcade machines were often built in the same military factories that made parts for rockets. No joke.
So this filter really had three big layers. First, just getting your hands on a computer was a nightmare. They were super rare, expensive, and usually just unreliable clones of Western tech. Second, you had the political ideology. The state saw computers as tools for the military or for education, not for something frivolous like playing games. And third, and this is a big one, was the cultural fear. There was no open hacker culture because the threat of state surveillance was always there. So you kept your projects secret, and when they were forgotten, they were gone for good.
All right, now let's use this idea of the filter to look at our main case file. We're going right back to the birthplace of Tetris, the Dordnitsin Computing Center, to investigate a lost project they called the Computer Funfair. So check out how this all went down. It starts in '84. Pajitnov is messing around with a prototype called genetic engineering. Later that year, he teams up with this teenage genius, Vadim Gerasimov, and the Tetris we all know and love is born. So the team, Pajitnov, Gerasimov, and another programmer named Dmitry Pavlovsky, they start working on this awesome bundle of about a dozen games, the Computer Funfair. But then, in 1986, the West comes knocking, and they only want one thing, Tetris. So Pajitnov has a choice to make, and he chooses to drop the Funfair and chase the golden goose. And wow, this quote from Vadim Gerasimov, it really puts a human face on the whole thing. This wasn't just some business decision, right? This was the end of a creative partnership, the end of a team. The very thing that made one of them a household name ended up destroying the collective dream they were all working toward. So, what exactly did we lose? This table really lays it all out. That early Tetris prototype, genetic engineering, gone. Pavlovsky's other games for huge mainframe computers lost to time. And the Computer Funfair itself, with about 10 different titles, almost all of them just vanished. Until, somehow, against all odds, one was found. And that brings us to the present day. I mean, how on earth do you find a computer file that's been missing for nearly 40 years? Well, you call in the digital archaeologists.
For decades, the Computer Funfair was basically a myth. It was a ghost story you'd find in the footnotes of the Tetris legend. And the games themselves? Everyone just assumed they were gone forever. You know, wiped from existence by rotting magnetic tapes and obsolete hardware.
Until July 2022. After almost 40 years of complete silence, a piece of that lost world suddenly reappeared.
Just one. A single file was found. A game called Klax, or sometimes Antisonics, was discovered by a collector over in Bulgaria, just sitting on an old hard drive. But that one file was everything. It was the proof. It meant the Computer Funfair wasn't just a story, it was real. And a discovery like this is only possible because of this incredible global network of people. You have folks at places like the Museum of Soviet Arcade Machines who are literally pulling old hardware out of scrap heaps to save it. You've got these amazing online communities like oldgames.ru where people are sharing memories and hunting for clues. And then you have digital libraries like archive.org making sure that when something is found, it's saved for everyone forever. So what does all this really mean? Why should any of us care about a few forgotten games made on computers nobody uses anymore, in a country that isn't even on the map? It gets you thinking, doesn't it? What is the actual value of a game if no one ever got to play it? You know, if a tree falls in a digital forest, does it even make a sound?
Well, I think the value is in what they represent. These lost games, these digital ghosts, they aren't just failed projects, they're monuments. They are solid proof of that unstoppable human need to create something, even when everything is pushing against you. They're symbols of an imagination that a system tried and completely failed to contain.
And maybe that's the real takeaway here. Maybe these games were never destined to be global hits. Maybe their whole purpose wasn't to be played at all, but just to exist, even for a little while, as a reminder. A reminder of how imagination, creativity, and just the simple joy of making something can survive absolutely anywhere.